Hello. I promised this video here a while back, but life happens. I got busy, so I wasn't able to upload anything for a while. Uh, I did post just article, but to get right into it, I wanted to just update everyone on what the um, current requirements are for people entering the Philippines, specifically unvaccinated. Uh, I'm not going to go into great detail. I'm going to leave a link below to Jennifer Terry's videos because I think she does a better job than I do probably of really following the latest updates from the Philippine government and Philippine officials. But I realized with some comments on some of my previous videos, maybe some people were watching those videos and didn't have the latest information. So I'll get right into that. I also have a little comment later on in the video I'll give about domestic travel. Some questions about that came up. And I have some information, not firsthand, but secondhand reliable sources. So basically, as of November the 4th, this month, the first part of this month, the Philippine government changed its policy for unvaccinated, all unvaccinated, whether you're a tourist or a Filipino, whatever. So those policies, I won't say they dropped the quarantine on arrival, but the only case you would need to quarantine is if you were to test positive. If you are unvaccinated, you still need to do a test. You either have to do a antigen test. I believe you could do a PCR, but the way they list it is antigen test 24 hours before your flight, or sometime in that frame, or not more than 24, basically 24 hours or less before your flight. That would be my suggestion, to do it then. They do allow you, even if you haven't done a test, you can board your plane. But if you haven't done a test before you get to the Philippines, I'll put it that way, within 24 hours of your departure from your port of departure. If you didn't do a test before, you're going to have to do a test when you get to the Philippines, and that's where it gets a little you put yourself a little more risk, because you need to have a negative COVID test to enter the Philippines without quarantine. If you were to get to the Philippines and test positive, then you're going to have to quarantine, and that's going to be on your dime for us. Now, I think OFWs probably would be a little different, but for foreign nationals, it's going to be at your expense. Also, when you arrive, if you arrive in most places in the Philippines, your COVID test is going to be at your expense, which, I mean, it's not that expensive. When we went, it was like 500 pesos, $10. Probably cheaper to do it in the Philippines than to do it in the US, honestly. But the reason I would suggest doing it in the US is because if you wait till you get to the Philippines, you take that risk of getting a positive result, and then you're in quarantine. So just to reduce that risk, I would go ahead and do it before I left the US. Not more than 24 hours, so a day before your travel, and that should be 24 hours or less before your travel, and that's if you've booked a continuous ticket. So not booking to, say, if you were going to Thailand and you booked one flight to Thailand and then booked with another airline from Thailand to the Philippines, then you would need to do your test 24 hours from your flight. But if you booked a continuous ticket, 24, 23, you could wait till 1 hour before your flight. Chances are I did that when we left. I did the morning of our flight. We had like 3 or 4 hours, well, no more than that, but we had our results within less than 2 hours. I would say probably 1 hour or so of taking the swab test. It was a rapid antigen test, and we had our results. So it did cost us $100 and something. Like I said, that was private, clinic in San Francisco, so it was probably more expensive, but we had to do that. But now you do have some options, so it's your option to do it before or to do it upon arrival. One thing, if you arrive in Cebu, unless they changed it, I know the Governor Gwynn was talking about basically they would provide those tests at their expense, so it would be free to you. That would be an option, definitely, for people that didn't want to spend the money or couldn't afford to spend the money. But I think the risk there outweighs the reward, because if you get a positive test and you get thrown into quarantine, not thrown in, but you have to go to quarantine, that would be a hotel at your expense, and you're talking, however many. If you're positive for COVID, I think it's going to be like 7 to 14 days. So even more than your just quarantine upon arrival previously. And that's going to be your expense and eat up your vacation time or whatever. It's not really what I'd want to be doing with my time in the Philippines. So that's what I know. Like I said, normal travel. Otherwise, you need your normal travel documents. They are doing the e-arrival card. There again, changed from previous when they were doing the One Health Pass, the e-arrival card. They are suggesting that you do it before you arrive, but if you can still board without doing that, and you could do it on the flight, you could do it on your layover, but there again, that's going to cost you time and hassle, and it's advised that you do it before. So I would say if you possibly can, I think it needs to be done. Again, I'm gonna recommend you do view Jennifer Terry's video if you want more detailed information, because I'm just going off of the top of my head what I can remember. But yeah, definitely I wanted to let everyone know that quarantine upon arrival now is only in the case of you had a positive COVID test upon arrival as a non-vaccinated, then you would go to quarantine. But if you have a negative COVID test, now I think it's a good step forward that they are now not requiring that quarantine upon arrival for unvaccinated. I'm hoping that we will see the end of all these COVID restrictions. I think at this point it's time, but that's my opinion. So that's the update for international travel arrival in the Philippines. I just want to briefly talk about domestic travel. I did a little video about it on our first-hand experience, and you can check that out. We traveled by ferry, and we were never required as unvaccinated, and this was in October, the end of September and October. We were never required to have show proof of vaccination or give any kind of negative COVID test. And this was going from Cebu province, down lower part of Cebu, over to Dumaguete, and then traveling later on, about 2 or 3 weeks after that, into the middle of October, we traveled from Dumaguete to Siquijor and never required anything, and then Siquijor back, and then from there, from Negros up near San Carlos into back to Cebu. So we kind of made a big circle. I wanted to bring that up because at the time, and even possibly now, if you looked up requirements to travel to Sigihor, I did, and it was saying you needed to either be vaccinated or show proof of, show negative test result. Even up to the day we got there, some bystanders were asking, were sharing information, and their kind of understanding was if you were unvaccinated, you weren't allowed to enter. But there's what you will find online, and then there's the actual reality. They never ask for anything. I don't know what their current policy is, but I know the implementation is, when we were there, which was a month ago, was fairly relaxed. So they were not, by ferry, they were not requiring that. So I know that's by ferry, and that's a little different than people wanting to know about domestic flights. So on that, friend, relative of my wife's, and a friend of ours, I talked to him a good bit, and we were talking about travel, and he was, at that time, I don't know his current, but he was partially vaccinated. He had one shot, but by all standards they were applying at that time, he would be considered unvaccinated. So he had traveled from Dumaguete to Manila, which Manila is probably the strictest area, or had been, and he had checked with the airline before he left, and he told me he flew with Cebu Pacific, and all they were requiring at that time is general travel documents, your ID and your airline ticket. So he is a Filipino, but I just wanted to bring that forward, so at least that was his experience, and I believe him completely. He said I reached out to him again and asked him, what was his experience, a few more details, and he told me about he had flew with Cebu Pacific, but he checked with several other airlines. This is from Dumaguete. I don't know about other provinces, but from Dumaguete, these other airlines that he had checked with, I'm not sure if he checked with everyone, but he said that the only requirements, and this was as of October 21st, I believe he said, that he checked, was, again, no requirement for vaccination proof and no requirement for testing, just simply your boarding pass and your travel documents, whether it's passport or whatever IDs you're flying on. So that's his experience. Again, not my firsthand, but a very reliable source. I did have a commenter that asked that question about domestic travel, and that's why I wanted to mention it. And I told him what I knew, and he actually gave his on personal experience. He had flown in August. I don't want to misquote him, but I believe he flew from, I don't want to, but he flew domestically, and he wasn't required anything. But I mentioned, hey, if you are in doubt, check with your airline. So he did check with PAL, Philippine Airlines, and he said they're requiring COVID test. So I don't know if they changed their policy or if they are simply going on a previous policy. I'm definitely not going to suggest someone do something that I'm not going to tell you you can fly, but certainly, like I said, my Filipino friend there was able to. It may be a little different for a foreign tourist, but what I found in our ferry travels is, I just took the chance. And when we went to Sigahor, because it was saying, test was required, this was the online information. But I kind of took the chance. I weighed the risk and reward, and I told the wife, hey, we're going to just go to the port. We're going to try to get a ticket. And if we can't get a ticket that day, we're going to get our test and we'll come back and get a ticket. So I was really only risking our time. Now, if you're buying airline tickets, it's going to be a little more expensive, so you may want to check with your airline. But I wouldn't necessarily take the first person's word for it either. And you may want to check different airlines. You may want to check Cebu Pacific. Cebu Pacific may have a different policy than Philippine Airlines. You may even get a different ticketing agent that is looking at old information. I'm not skeptical that of the information that my subscriber provided. I think what they're telling me is true, but I just know how sometimes different people are working off different information. Things change so quickly in the Philippines, and there's so much confusion around this. You know how it works. But so the domestic air flights, I can't give a definitive answer. I can give hearsay, and those who've actually tried, even that subscriber said he flew in August and was able to fly from one island to another without, with just his boarding pass, without a test. But the information they gave him when he contacted PAL was that he needed a test. So there's conflicting information there. I just want to make you aware of, give you my firsthand experience in land and sea travel, and from there you'll have to make your own decisions. But if it was me, the antigen test in the Philippines is not that expensive. If I really wanted to fly, I would probably just go ahead and do the antigen test. It's fairly cheap, fairly easy, and fairly quick. I would do that at some, private clinic or whatever. Do the rapid test, do it whatever time frame before that they told me. I'm willing to do the antigen test. I'm not willing to get the COVID vaccine. That's my own personal convictions. And to me, to each their own. What your personal medical choices are, your personal medical choices for your personal reasons, and you have the right to follow your conscience. So I'm just trying to provide information to help people who are maybe in a situation like mine, where their choice is not the popular choice, but it's what they believe is right for them and their family. So I hope this helped you out. I'm sorry I can't give completely definitive answers, and I hope that you can take the links below and then take that all with a grain of sand, because what the official policy is and what the actual implementation is often different. That's my point here. But you got to have somewhere to start, so this is somewhere to start. Your mileage may vary. So God bless everyone, and hopefully you will enjoy and have fun in the Philippines. Thanks. Bye.